Hey gang, Josh here. Question for you. What do you know about Frank's Wild Years?
I'm going straight up to the top.
Frank's Wild Years is the 10th studio album by Tom Waits, subtitled Un Apparachi Romantico in 2 acts. This is the album from which the song Way Down in the Hole comes. You know, the theme to the greatest American crime drama ever made, Monk.
When you walk through the garden, you gotta watch your back.
I mean this.
It's jungle out there.
The first season of the show features a cover of the song by the Blind Boys of Alabama, and it's great.
If you walk with Jesus, he'll save your soul. You gotta keep the devil down in the hole.
The second season uses Tom's original version of the song, and you can look up the rest for yourself. Or you can just go and watch The Wire right now. I mean, that's never a bad idea. Side note, Way Down in the Hole supposedly inspired Nick Cave's song Red Right Hand, another one that's been used extensively in other media, like a ton. Leave a comment below if you'd like me to talk incessantly about that song. I'll do it. Frank's Wild Years isn't the album that introduced me to Tom Waits, but it is the one that most fascinated me as a slightly younger man. And it's the album that I'll put on when working from home. Side note, you shouldn't do this. I just happen to be so familiar with this album that I can listen to it as background music, but you may not be ready to answer an email while this is happening.
I drink 1,000 shipwrecks. Tonight I steal your paychecks.
If you're a sicko like me, though, it's akin to listening to aquatic ambience while you get a foot massage. Frank's Wild Years, released in August of 1987, is a concept album, a 2-act musical of sorts where the songs help to reinforce the mood rather than move the plot along. And here the songs in fact were composed for a play of the same name. More accurately, it was a book musical, You're Welcome Theater Kids, which was co-written by Tom and wife Kathleen Brennan, and performed by the Steppenwolf Theater Company in Chicago, under the artistic direction of Gary Sinise. Sure, with Tom himself in the titular role of Frank. Side note, a playbill from the production credits incidental trickery as being devised by Teller, who I did discover is in fact Teller of the Magician's Penn and Teller. He seems to have worked with the Steppenwolf Theater Company on several occasions during this time. Sinise, Teller, Waits. I wouldn't be surprised to learn the whole affair was orchestrated by one Pepe Sylvia.
There's no Pepe Sylvia, you gotta be kidding me! I got boxes full of Pepe!
Following the play's 3-month run in 1986, Waits went into the studio with many of the musicians he'd been working with on stage in order to record Frank's Wild Years as an album. Most of the songs performed in the play did make the cut for the album, but it's not considered a condensed version of the book musical, as it's devoid of any kind of connecting dialogue. That said, it's not incredibly difficult to imagine the basic story from what's presented. Frank is discontent with his life in the small town of Rainville. He packs up his accordion and drives away to seek fame and fortune, the big time, and it doesn't go well. After many trials and tribulations, a broken down Frank ends up on a park bench in East St. Louis, no longer dreaming of the big time, now just the life he once knew in that small town of Rainville. Frank's Wild Years is the last in a trilogy of albums which includes 1982's Swordfish Trombones and my personal favorite, 1985's Rain Dogs. These are the 3 records that Tom made for the Island label in the 1980s. Albums where he would move away from the jazzy balladry found on previous records and fully embrace the distorted vocals, abstract songwriting, and unusual instrumentation that would become his kind of signature sound from then on. Waits had begun this process with the last 2 albums he recorded for the Asylum label, 1978's Blue Valentine and 1980's Heart Attack and Vine. Records on which he largely abandoned piano-based melodies in favor of a more guitar-forward sound. But Waits' Island trilogy is a radical departure from even those 2 records. And you can trace this point of departure to the moment that Kathleen Brennan introduced Tom to the music of Captain Beefheart and his magic band.
You might think this is the finest pearl, but it's only cardboard balls seamed in glue.
And yeah, hearing Captain Beefheart changes you, or changes the way that you think about rock music. You probably won't experience any kind of spiritual enlightenment or transformative ego death listening to the Captain, but who knows? Smash that like button if listening to the Magic Band opened your third eye. So Tom took Beefheart's approach to instrumentation and arrangements, combined with their shared love of deep and dirty blues vocals, and made it his own, incorporating horns, percussion, and vocal effects in ways that he hadn't before. Gone was the bluesy beatnik crooner persona, and in his place stood a mad Tin Pan Alley songwriter entrusted with a megaphone and empowered by the promise of $10 if he can just sell enough tickets to the carnival's freak show. And you can be forgiven for dismissing the vocal theatrics and gin-soaked horns as being weird for weird's sake, but I'd argue that everything is well thought out across Frank's wild years. Take, for example, the song Blow Wind Blow and the music video made for it.
Take me to the light, take me to the night.
The banjo licks, the plinky piano, the tuba and trombone all float through the song like they're being played by the breeze.
I'll ride upon a field mouse.
And here the video and the camera movements are made to match the imagined wind, mimicking the desire of the narrator to be effortlessly carried off into the night.
You skid along their arm.
That's good art, gang. Blow Wind Blow follows a little rumba rocker called Temptation, which is sung in what Waits has jokingly referred to as his Prince voice. It's short on lyrics but begins with a killer quatrain.
Rusty brandy in a diamond glass. Everything is made from dreams. Time made from honey, slow and sweet. Only the fools know what it means.
Ding that bell if you're a fool that knows what it means. Elsewhere, like on Train Song, a simple metaphor about not being able to return to what you left behind, Waits sings in a kind of full-throated sob. If ruin regret can be encapsulated into a vocal performance, well then friends, this is it.
It was a train that took me away from here, but a train can bring me home.
Frank's Wild Years would be Tom's last album recorded in the 1980s, and it would be a full 5 years until another one would appear. In that time, he would change his tune again to a darker and more spare sound with 1992's Bone Machine. But that's a story for another time, gang. Cut.